This is my brutally honest review of Cities Skylines 2, and thank you very much to Paradox for gifting me a copy of the game so I could make the review. Paradox's very corporate sounding slogan for this game is, if you can dream it, you can build it. Sounds like I'm playing with Lego. But for what it's worth, Cities Skylines 2 is an incredible city builder, I want to say from the start. A lot of issues from the first game, a lot of things that were DLC, a lot of mods in the first game have all come together into the base game of Cities Skylines 2. Jumping straight into the gameplay, there are loads of different road types and so many different building tools. I definitely think you'll appreciate all the different options. For me personally, I really love that it comes with a pedestrian street in the base game, so you can create some inner European style cities. Roundabouts are actually really great too, because you can just plop it on any kind of intersection and it'll work. You don't have to spend ages trying to build one. My only slight criticism is that I don't think there's enough pre-made highway junctions. It's something that I really just hate building, and it's a massive barrier to me when it comes to expanding cities. I just kind of wish they added a little bit more. In terms of zoning, there are so many different types now, allowing so much creativity in different kinds of possibilities. A great one for me is the mixed residential and commercial. I also like that you can choose between medium density row housing versus standard housing, because we did not have row housing in the first game really. The only thing I really wish it came with was a luxury housing option, also a luxury shopping option. I really want to create some celebrity mansions up in a hill somewhere. I want to make a gated neighborhood. I want to make a luxury shopping district and distinguish between low socioeconomic commercial versus high, because that does exist in real life, but it doesn't necessarily exist in the game. All of the utility service and maintenance tools such as water and sewage are actually really cool now in a really weird way. I love making landfill sites. You can draw a little box around it. It's quite fun. There's actually weirdly a lot of different options now with electricity. Honestly, I'm not much of a city building nerd. I just like making pretty cities. When I saw that this game has transformers, I did panic a bit because I'm quite thick and I don't know what a transformer is, and I had to Google it. I feel like these kinds of things are either something that you're going to really love or really hate, depending on how deep you want to go in the game. For people like me who don't like it that deep, I could have turned that into like a sexual innuendo, but I won't. It's a bit of a learning curve for me. I think if you're a casual player and you're not necessarily a cities nerd, I think you will find certain random things in the game, like learning what a transformer is, a bit difficult. But in general, all of the specialist buildings now are really great. Firstly, because they're actually a lot more realistic for size. They're a lot bigger. I know some people are going to hate that. I actually really like it. And I also really love that you can upgrade buildings now by placing additional add-ons onto the building which have different effects. It means you don't have to place like 100 different high schools in your city just so that you have all these different catchment areas sorted. You can just have one big high school and just use add-ons when you need to upgrade it, which I think is really genius. And it's like that for all of the service buildings, healthcare, police, fire, etc. In terms of public transport, I think there's a very wide array of different options, not just for different types, but also styles. For example, you can choose between a European versus a North American bus stop. Not only that, you can choose between whether you want a bus stop sign or a bus shelter. Cities Skylines 2 allows you to go into public transport with a lot of detail in this aspect, although I think a lot of people will find it a bit annoying at first because some of the public transport hub buildings are extremely big. The train station is no exception. It's absolutely huge, unnecessarily huge, especially when you're just starting out and you're making your small city and you've got this small city, but you've got this humongous train station that doesn't fit in. Some say bigger is better, others say smaller is better. I say bigger is better. What do you say? I'm not going to judge you, whatever floats your boat. I think the reason why people are criticizing the size of buildings is because maybe they're used to much smaller ones in Cities 1. For me, I like that it's bigger. I like the bigger ones. Bigger train stations, that is. I definitely definitely think we're going to get a lot of public transport updates in terms of DLC. As far as I'm aware, there's going to be some ferry, port, or harbour something DLC coming out soon, because I know it was announced before release. But I feel like the public transport in the base game is enough. Now, one thing I do really like about Cities Skylines 2 is the progressions panel. As you develop your city, you gain experience points, and then you can spend these points in a skill tree system. In a weird way, it actually reminds me a lot of RPG games, and I really like it. There are different kinds of areas that you can choose to progress in, and in these different areas, you have different branches. I really love it because you have to think carefully, especially at the start, about where you're spending points and what you want to spend points on. And I think it's good because it can help dictate the direction that you want your city to go, because making like a jack of all trades city every single time, I think it's not that fun. I think it's nice to delve deep into the certain specific areas of the game, because I do think Cities 2 is a very deep game, and I think the progressions panel allows you to focus on certain industries or different areas you want to focus on in your city. In terms of taking it deep, industries are really great. You can choose a different industry specialization area, and you basically just place down one building and then you draw an area around it, just like you do with the landfill. It is such a genius idea. I think it's really exciting, and I think it's a really great way to build up your cities and add more variety. I think it's a really great balance between just placing generic industrial zoning versus the really complicated intricacies of, for example, Cities Skylines 1 industry DLC. It's like an in-between, and I really like it. Looking at the general positives of the game, there is so much customization and different ways to solve different challenges in your city. For me, when I did find certain challenges, such as a struggling economy, I didn't feel like it was happening as a result of the game being coded poorly or something, but it actually felt quite realistic. It felt like it was my fault because like I was building my cities wrong and I had to do something about it. And because there are so many different kinds of gameplay avenues that you can go down, I felt like there were many different ways to resolve the problems, and which one you choose doesn't really matter. You just have to choose one that you enjoy, which I like. Although a certain symptom of this is that some city issues, it's not really clear what the problem is, and sometimes attempts to fix it can make it worse, which is frustrating, although it is very realistic. If you're looking for a realistic city simulator, like, I don't mean to be political, but the government trying to fix a problem and make it worse, like, it is realistic. So it depends how you look at it. Also, love the seasons in the game. I think it's a really lovely addition. I love the difference between North American and European style. The way that they've set up the themes in the game is actually really streamlined and really easy to use and understand. I really hope that they add more in the future. Also, in general, I think the game is very graphically impressive. There's a lot of detail in places where you wouldn't ordinarily notice detail because most people wouldn't zoom that far into the map. I think the lighting as well is really pretty at different times of day. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about performance and graphical issues. So off the bat, I just want to say the motion blur setting that's on by default, turn this off, is absolutely horrendous. As of the game's release, I know there's been a little bit of controversy in terms of performance. Paradox have released a statement about this, saying that it wasn't up to the standard they had hoped for upon release, and they obviously didn't want to delay the release, so they decided to release it with the technical difficulties. I definitely suffered some issues with it, and I will be honest, it doesn't feel smooth. The actual gameplay itself is fine, like it doesn't freeze and lag, but I think when you're moving around the map, sometimes it can feel a little bit clunky and outdated. I don't have the most powerful PC in the entire world, but I don't have a bad PC by any means, so there's not really any reason why it should be stuttering and not able to reach 30 FPS. I will also admit some things graphically do look a little bit weird. I think the water looks a little bit weird. I'm going to show you what I mean. I hope you understand. It looks a little bit, I don't know, glossy. Honestly, I think the game is so detailed, but I don't think think they necessarily needed to put all that detail in. In my opinion, I think the game would have been better suited to have slightly more cartoony graphics. I think if they made it just a little bit more cartoony, maybe it would have performed a bit better. I don't know. Obviously, they have released statements about it, and I know they are taking it seriously. I really hope they resolve these issues in the coming months. I will say though, the game is not unplayable. The game does not feel unplayable, and the frame rate doesn't feel distracting to me. But just as a pre-warning, if you do purchase this game, as of recording this video, you will need to play with lower graphic settings than what your computer should be able to handle. But I am really hoping that it shapes up better soon, especially for console. I am skeptical of if it doesn't perform well on PC, how about console? We're just gonna have to wait and see. In terms of generic issues, I really hate that there's not a simple undo function, especially for road building. Did somebody make like an undo mod for Cities Skylines 1? I feel like they could have made it possible, to be honest. Maybe if you were building whilst the game was paused, it would have made sense to have an undo. I don't know. Terrain is also very hit or miss. Sometimes buildings may look a little bit disjointed because the terrain is a bit too steep. This is an issue I've seen in every single city building game that I've ever played. I think the issue predominantly comes down to the maps being very hilly. I think there should have been a lot more flatlands in all of the default maps because there really isn't that much. I often found myself wanting to connect two roads and it accidentally turned into some really ugly bridge, so I couldn't zone there. It was very frustrating. I really hope that some modders come in and give us some edited maps with a lot of flatlands. Hopefully it's something that will come about soon. Also, I will say the game is very complex and there is a lot to think about. For example, you have to think about wind direction when you're designing your road layouts for industry. But of course, most people will make the road layout and then they do the industry after. If you've made the road layout and decided to put an industry somewhere, then you click on industry zoning and find out that the wind direction is not in your favor. It's a little bit frustrating. Same with what I said before about, you know, transformers. What the hell is a power transformer? For players like me, I don't want to know about, you know, changing high voltage electricity to low voltage. Like, I just want to place a power plant and have it done. For this, I will say that Cities Skylines II does have a very strong learning curve. I think if you've played the first Cities game, or any city building game for that matter, it will be an easier learning curve. But if you are new to the series, it is definitely a big curve. And I don't think the tutorial that's in the game is enough. I think the more complex you make a game, the more appealing it is to the hardcore fans, but the less streamlined it feels for casual players. But in general, I do think that they make a good enough balance between details for those who want it versus simplification of certain features for people who don't want it. And I think even if you are a new player to the series, you will still enjoy it. In terms of missing features, I actually would have liked a scenario mode. I know a lot of people didn't like the scenario mode in the first Cities Skylines game, but scenario modes can work out and they can be fun. I think games like Planet Zoo, Planet Coaster do scenario modes very well. And I really wish that they integrated a good scenario mode in Cities Skylines 2. I also think it would have been a great way to teach you how to focus on certain areas of the game instead of designing an entire city from scratch. Hopefully it does come as a free update later on. In terms of DLC, obviously there will be a lot of DLC just like the first game. I do truly feel like the base game is enough without any added content, and I think it's totally enjoyable. It feels really fleshed out and I don't feel like anything major has been locked away behind potential future DLC. The fact that they brought in a lot of features that were DLC in Cities 1 into the base game of Cities 2, I think was a really great move because it makes the transition from the first game to the second a lot more seamless. Obviously, objectively, Cities Skylines 1 has a lot more features because it has a lot of DLC, but I feel like the base game of Cities 2 is enough to actually make it feel really enjoyable and challenging. It's one of the rare occasions in the modern video gaming world I actually feel like the base game of a game that's designed to have a lot of DLC actually feels full and fleshed out. It doesn't feel cash grabby or exploitive, and it feels like it has a lot of replayability value. When I played the first Cities Skylines game, I used to do this thing where I'd build up a city to the point where it was earning decent money, and then there wasn't really anything to do anymore because I completed it other than just expanding. So I I would exit the game, and then the next time I played the game, I would start a whole new city again because there wasn't really that much challenge after the first few hurdles. In Cities Skylines 2, I don't feel like I need to do that. I enjoy going back to the same city over and over again because there's always something new to try out, or a new challenge that crops up, or a new feature that I haven't explored yet. It's not a simple case of just building roads and zoning them and expanding. There's a lot more going on in this game, which gives it a lot more replayability value, and that is something I really appreciate in a sandbox game. I'm a casual player. I do not care much for the nerdy side of Cities Skylines 2. I just like making pretty cities and messing around with the different tools. For a person like me, I think Cities Skylines 2 is amazing. There is so much creativity in this game, and I'm so excited, especially as well, for all the mods coming out, and it just feels like a good experience. It definitely needs a lot more free content updates and patches to make it feel totally full, especially in regards to FPS. I personally think they should have waited just a few more months to release it to get it up to scratch. I do wish they delayed it, but they didn't. I want to say I do enjoy this game a lot more than I enjoyed Cities Skylines 1. I love Cities Skylines 1 and I love Cities Skylines 2. In its release date though, it does have a few things holding it back, which is a shame because I think it has a lot of potential. If my lighting looks different, by the way, it's because the end of my previous recording corrupted, so I'm recording it all again. Should you purchase Cities Skylines 2 right now, or should you wait until they resolve the issues with it? It's a really difficult question to answer. If you're like a major hardcore Cities Skylines fan, like, I think you should just get it. Clearly they are going to work on the issues with it. Clearly they're not just going to abandon it, especially if they give it as much love and free updates as they did with the first game. I'm pretty confident that these issues are going to be resolved. So if you are an avid Cities Skylines player, I genuinely don't think you will regret it. But if you are a casual player, right now, I personally don't think the game is in a good enough state. And I really hate saying that because I had an amazing experience playing this. It really felt like a lot of fun, and it actually felt different to the first Cities game. It's just right now, it does feel like it's in beta. I did really want to give the game the benefit of the doubt because I played it in early access. Naturally, there were a lot of bugs that wouldn't have been there in the final release. So I really wanted to wait a little bit later, which is why my review might be a bit later than other people's or other people's initial gameplay, because I just wanted to make sure that I was playing a version of the game that felt like the version you're going to play. And even so, it just doesn't feel ready, in my opinion. It just feels like it's in... I feel like they should have released it, okay, as early access. I feel like they should have released a statement saying, hey guys, the game is not ready for release right now, but we know a lot of people really want to play the game, so we're releasing an open beta early access of the game. If you purchase this, you get access to the full game when it's out. I just feel like they should have done that instead. But they did decide to release the full experience as is, therefore my initial review of the game will be of that. My score of Cities Skylines 2 is a 6.5 out of 10. That sounds really harsh even to myself because I have enjoyed playing this game so much, and after this review, like, I'm gonna go back and play it again. I just don't think it's ready. I think it's an excellent game. It's just not ready. I think it's been birthed out prematurely. I am in direct contact with Paradox. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Too late now, bloody hell. It's all right. I've just double checked. It's on their public blog. I'm not getting in trouble. Basically, they have said in a post, why are you releasing the game if you have performance issues? And they've just said it is the right step. Despite the game being performance heavy, they believe it's an experience that we'll appreciate. Do I appreciate the experience in its current state? I do, but I didn't purchase it. I got it gifted. If I had to purchase the game in its current state, I probably would not have been happy. Would I have asked for a refund? Potentially. My hope is that they patch in all of the performance issues and a lot of the bugs ASAP and introduce some kind of content drop for free for players who did purchase it now, because it does feel like an early access release beta purchase rather than a full game experience purchase. I think that would be a good move by them, but I do feel confident that they're going to resolve the issues. If they do substantially work on the performance issues of the game and they substantially work on the bugs, I'm more than happy to re-review the game and give an updated review. So you might consider my review today a beta review. I don't know how you want to call it. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.